cross a river, the trestle was so high, just a boxcar of blue, showing daylight clear through, just an empty trainload of sky. Well, it hit me and it hurt me, made my good humor deserve. For a moment, I was tempted to fly to the devil or the Lord as it hung there like a sword. Just an empty trainload of sky. Was it spirit? Was it solid? Did I ditch that class in college? Pull the curtain from my eye. I said, hey, hey, my, my. Yeah. Saw a freight train yesterday. It was chugging, plugging away. Just an empty trainload of sky. Just an empty trainload of sky. Just an empty trainload of sky.
Performing the opening track to their new album Woodland, Gillian Welch and David Rawlings, live for the World Cafe. That song is called Empty Trainload of Sky. I'm Raina Douris. Gillian Welch and David Rawlings are my guests today on the show. Gillian, David, welcome back to the World Cafe.
Thanks, Raina.
Yeah, it's great to be
Thanks.
here.
That song that we just heard was the lead single from this album, Empty Trainload of Sky. Why was that the one you wanted to lead the way for this project?
It was probably one of the first songs that got written that we knew was a new record. There's usually at least one song that becomes some kind of a touchstone, and the other songs kind of take shape around it,
Yeah.
you know? So Empty Trainload was that song.
And to be really just nuts and bolts basic about it, it also has drums and bass on it, which means that there's a lot more outlets that can play something like that.
Right.
So, which
Like
makes
it
a difference.
practically makes sense.
yes.
Right. That makes
Some of our stuff, as you know, is rather quiet.
it can be.
Yes.
Can be a little minimal.
When you say it had a certain flavor, it had a certain sort of mood to it. If you had to, how would you define what that flavor is on this album?
There's quite a bit of loss.
I think there's like a duality
Yeah.
that's present in that song, and that theme seemed to be running through a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the things that we were coming up with.
In fact, it's kind of in the lyric when we hit the bridge and it says, is it spirit? Is it solid? which was it? Was it real? Was it not real? Is it dead? Is it not dead?
Yeah.
Sort of runs through the whole album.
Yeah. You have released albums of original music under many, I mean, each of your individual names under the Dave Rawlings machine. In 2020, you put out an album under both your names, but it was an album of covers. How did you decide that this one should be under both your names and should be all original songs?
Well, in the most, again, nuts and bolts way, we're both singing lead on this record, and any of the records that had, we had never put out a Gillian Welch record where I was taking a lead, and likewise, we'd never put out an album under my name or under Dave Rawlings' machine where Gillian took a lead. We'd been a little sneaky. Like if you go back to say Time the Revelator, I'm kind of singing lead on I Want to Sing That Rock and Roll, but it's duet all the way through. And
yeah, I'm technically on tenor.
Yeah.
On that one.
And like on The Way It Will Be, that was sort of
unison.
Yeah, but in this case, we just thought it seemed like the time to just put both of our names on it and be done with it.
Does the songwriting dynamic change when both your names are on it?
I don't think it does that
Nothing
much.
changes.
No, nothing changes, which was kind of the reason to finally do it. This is pretty much what it's been the whole time, as far as, behind the curtain, like how we work, how we write, how we rehearse, the sounds we want to make.
Some of the stuff at the very beginning kind of had to do with the climate in Nashville when we were first starting, female singer-songwriters who were having a thing. And even when Gillian was first signed as a publisher, it was sort of to follow in the footsteps of some of those people. That was kind of where the business world was funneling us from the beginning. And of course, there's no reason why it was a great idea. So we kind of
Yeah, and I suppose we technically did some very early gigs, very, very early gigs, where you get up and you play like 3 songs. We were advertised as Gillian Welch and David Rawlings. And I remember we saw it in the Nashville newspaper. It was really hard to fit in all the letters.
Too many letters.
Everyone
They're
else's
tiny.
name looked bigger and easier to read. And then this was, so many letters.
Right.
So far, a lot of practical business decisions.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, when you do work so closely, and you've worked so closely on so many of your albums, I mean, how do you know, doing something like this, if a song is a Gillian song or a song is a David song, and who takes the lead? Do you bring in a song and that's one you sing, or how does that work?
No, because, I mean, if we talk about like hashtag for a second, that's a song that I started literally, the morning I woke up and saw hashtag Guy Clark trending. And I thought, oh no, this is a terrible way to find out that your friend is gone.
Yeah.
And this is what happened, We work on it, and the lyric evolves, and the music evolves. Because probably prior to that,
We thought you were going to sing it.
I'd been singing it,
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. I'm not sure people fully understand how much we'll just do whatever we think is best.
You're going to perform hashtag for us.
Yes.
We're going to hear that next. And there is that lyric in there that I was going to ask you about. You laughed and said the news would be bad if I ever saw your name with a hashtag. Singers like you and I are only news when we die, which I think, is that a line that you wrote about Guy Clark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also has the line about a new form of the flu, and that was written pre-COVID.
Okay, I was
And
curious
That
about
was
that.
before.
Yeah, but then, of course, through COVID, you're just losing so many people, and people who you knew and loved, and that song really taps in my mind, to like the community that there is among singer-songwriters and musicians and people who know they're doing it to, you do it because you love it, you make as good of a living as you can, but you're not going to stop. Sometimes a lot of the support that you find is just from other people who have done it the same way.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
and,
There's Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's also a line in there when you say like community. I do feel it connect to other writers and other creative people. Like there's a line in that song about the years roll out and the doubt rolls in. And that sentiment, I remember one time talking to Garrison Keillor about writing, and I must have been in a frustrated moment, which happens occasionally. And he said, well, you know, it just gets harder. It's like anyone tells you get easier, it's just wrong. It gets harder.
Yeah.
But that's okay. It gets harder, but you become more yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And
You know.
Yeah.
Let's hear it performed live. This is Gillian Welch and David Rawlings with Hashtag on World Cafe.
Once I saw your old familiar face, I was walking in a new watering place. Been a little lost for a little while. People sometimes go out of style and make a new habit, have a new kid. Maybe both, God forbid, but all at once you seem to know the very thing that laid me low. Caught it like a new form of the flu, shocked it up to our old friend the blues. The questions and the answers you'd find talked me out of that breakdown. You said time makes the wheels spin and the years roll out and the doubt rolls in and the truck stops in the parking lots and the cheap motels. When will we become ourselves? When will we become ourselves? When will we become ourselves? You laughed and said the news would be bad if I ever saw your name with a hashtag. Singers like you and I, only news when we die. Here I'm sitting around another night, looking at your boots, Jesus Christ. That's some mighty big ones to try to feel. Never can and never will. So here's another song that's over now. You're another sun that done gone down. Put another good one in the ground. Good Lord, it's going round. And now let the wheels spin and the tears roll out and the tributes roll in and the truck stops in the parking lots and the cheap motels. When will we become ourselves? When will we become ourselves? When will we become ourselves?
You just heard Gillian Welch and David Rawlings performing Hashtag from their new album Woodland live for the World Cafe. My name is Raina Douris, and I'm talking to Gillian and David today. I always find it interesting when artists include modern, kind of like techie terms like hashtag in a song, and especially in this style of music, which is a little bit more traditional. I mean, you've got references here to Bibles and to boxcars, but then also to hashtags. In your mind, how does language like that fit into this kind of songwriting?
Oh, that's a good question. For me, it fits in rarely. I do tend to talk about the devil more than the telephone, you know, because I'm interested in enduring themes. The human condition. That's where I like to sit most of the time.
But
you
there's
know.
something about that term and the way it's used that does, at least in this cultural moment, it brings in a certain nuance of feeling and a certain a way that the news gets around now, that there's no other way to express that because it's never happened that way before.
Yeah. Well, it was so tied to that moment and thought and the entire, genesis of the song. So there was no way to leave that one out.
Yeah. When you're writing music that is so rooted in tradition and sort of those kind of timeless themes, how do you keep things fresh for yourself?
Well, I try to go straight for particularity. I mean, the more finely focused I can get to a certain moment, even if it's a universal theme, and quite honestly, as with like hashtag peculiarity, I like the peculiar little turn of events, and
And a lot of times, if you just you can start something in a very calculated way of just like, well, here are some words that seem to go well together, or here's another title of a song that I've always loved, and let's try to do something off of that. And all of a sudden, you are trying to express yourself, but you find that happens automatically, that you can't keep it out.
you can't
Right.
help it.
And then sometimes if you sit down and go, what do I want to express? You might as well put the largest piece of blank white paper in front of you and stare at it that you ever did, and you get nowhere.
And the largest cliche,
Right. Like, how do I feel? I feel like everyone else. And it's
I'm
and
sad.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm speaking with Gillian Welch and David Rawlings on World Cafe. Earlier, kind of briefly, we touched on COVID when we were talking about hashtag. And in a minute, I do want to talk about the tornado that happened in 2020, because I know that also was a big part of this record and your lives in the last few years. But there was another thing that I noticed on this album, the song Lawman, which you're going to perform next for us, which feels, sadly, kind of like a timeless American story, but also feels like it could be taking place now. Like it could be the 1920s, it could be the 2020s. Could you tell us about writing Lawman?
That particular idea had sort of been cooking for a while. We knew it was going to be from the point of view of the woman who knew her man was going to get it from the lawman. There's this inevitability. It hasn't, and it's such a weird temporal setting because.
And it felt societal, and it felt like it connected to a lot of, just that. We all know people in our lives who you look at them and you kind of know what path they're heading down.
Right, right.
And
right.
just thinking of that doesn't mean that someone doesn't, there's things that that you can't stop.
This is Lawman. It's Gillian Welch and David Rawlings on World Cafe.
piece of bread. Now the preacher's gonna preach from the Bible. The devil's gonna laugh at what he said. The gambler gonna lay down his last gold dollar. The shadow's gonna creep from a farmer's shed. And lawman, lawman, lawman gonna kill my honey dad. Now the ground's gonna freeze when fall is over. Fever gonna burn in a big brass bed. The big iron gonna rust. Everything's dust to dust. Lawman gonna kill my honey dead. Yeah, lawman, lawman, lawman gonna kill my honey dad.
Lawman, a live performance from Gillian Welch and David Rawlings of a song from their new album called Woodland. Gillian and David are here with me today on World Cafe. I'm Raina Douris. Woodland is the name of your studio in Nashville. Could you paint the picture for us and tell us what it's like?
It was originally a movie theater that was built in the teens. It's right in the center of East Nashville, at a little area called 5 Points, where 5 streets come together, and it would have been, you know, a real center point of the town that was converted into a recording studio in the 60s. It was successful from the beginning. The first real record of note that was made there was the Will the Circle Be Unbroken Nitty Gritty Dirt Band record. And then in the 70s, that studio really exploded. Tons of, Nashville records were made there. And people came from all over.
So like Comes a Time, the Neil Young record
Yeah.
was made there.
and
Wow.
Kansas did Dust in the Wind, and and a lot of the urban cowboy era country that crossed over to pop was all sort of made
And
there.
like Elvira.
Whoa, that's so cool. What a
Yeah.
cool energy
It's amazing.
there must be in that building.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and there ended up being 2 full studios and a mastering studio in there. It's a big place.
And they ran around the clock.
2 to 6 to 6 to 10.
Wow.
To 10 to 2 to 2 to 6.
Now,
Just-
5 points for people who are listening might not know this is in East Nashville,
Yes.
which is where the tornado hit in 2020. So could you tell us what the state of the studio was in?
Well,
after that
the
happened.
tornado came through, and a good friend of ours, Glenn, who works with us, was staying at the studio actually, and we went over there to try to get into 5 Points to get to the studio, and it took maybe 20 minutes because of the down power lines and everything to get anywhere close.
Yeah.
And then, I got out of the car and started kind of running through the rubble towards about a block away from the studio. And I could see that the Family Dollar that was on the opposite corner was down. That
Rubble.
wasn't there anymore.
It was
Oh my God.
gone.
And then the next thing I could see that Woodland was standing. So I thought, oh my God, the building's still there. But
You
the
could
whole,
see the top of the walls are still square, so it didn't take a wall out.
but
it
then I could also
took
see that all the roof was in the
Whoa.
and
in the-
peeled it back like a sardine tin and
Wow.
flipped it onto Woodland Street in front, so the whole roof just went wabam.
it's pitch black because all the power is gone, and the rain is just pouring down. It's just a monsoon out
And you
there.
have no roof.
So now we have no roof.
We have
and
no
it's
roof.
And it's pouring
In
in a
our
recording
studio.
studio.
Which is not what you want.
No.
So we just, began to work, and it's a big old building. So there's that main roof that was the theater part, but there's additions, and there were places where there are lower roofs that were built more like Turkish bath style that weren't damaged, and we were running around in the dark trying to find places way down in the building that were dry, and then just moving everything
So we
as the inner
basically,
roofs were
Yeah,
collapsing
had to
and
move
things.
the entire every guitar, every master tape, all our microphones, all our gear, and as the hours went by, the water got through the second story. Like we thought places were dry. Of course, we didn't realize that our roof was gone, and then the ceiling started collapsing.
Right.
In,
Oh, wait, what do you mean you didn't realize that the roof?
Well, it's a 2-story building.
Right, okay, so I got, okay.
We just weren't
Yeah.
there's a
There were
ceiling
leaks,
into the
but-
studio, but
Right.
it just got worse and worse until
Got
it
it.
was as if it was just pouring rain
Sure.
inside.
And then it
Oh my
ended up
God.
with, ankle deep water in the studio, in the A room where we record, and yeah.
It feels incredibly overwhelming to even know where to begin cleaning up something like that.
Yes, so it's taken a few years.
Took us a
Yeah.
couple years.
Now, is it,
Yeah, we-
usable, everything works?
Although not everything's great, but we did rebuild because then the rebuilding all had to happen through COVID.
Yeah.
But before there were vaccines or any of that. So, that's when it started. So it was a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I realized as we were coming to the end of this project, because I know this has been a long segment, I was getting into the mastering portion of this record, and I'd sort of assembled the stuff, and we were trying to think of a title, and at some point it just crossed my mind that's like, I've been in this building for 14 hours a day minimum for the past 5 years. It's like, if it's anything,
It's
it's
woodland.
Woodland.
Yeah.
Like, in that shaped the themes, and that shaped the writing, and that shaped the way we felt about all of it.
As we mentioned, there's this, there are contradictions running through this album, and the destruction and the sort of resurrection are in there too, because Woodland was destroyed,
Yeah.
and yet here it is.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I have lived in my house right now for about 3 years. And I was like, we got to go through the basement. When are we ever going to go through the basement? I'm never going to go through the basement. It's going to become a disaster. It's already too overwhelming. It's just going to get more overwhelming. You'd been at Woodland for about 2 decades at that point. And when you have something like that, it kind of forces you have to go through these things.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, how does doing that affect you on a creative level?
You know, Woodland is kind of our home. And years past, we have literally lived there, you know. So there was a real sense of back to the beginning. And there were many times in this process where both of us were put in mind of our very early days in Nashville and starting because, you know, when you become a working musician, the times that you spend huge amounts of time sitting in your living room playing for only yourselves, those times kind of go away because you're always playing for people. But here we were, back playing only for ourselves, nobody hearing us, nobody clapping, all that's gone. It's just, do you like it? Do you like the sounds you're making?
Yeah.
It was so pure in a way.
And what you were saying about going through the basement, it's like that's after we had moved the tapes and, you know, and we couldn't record in the main room. That's when we started, you know, we did an archival project where we resurrected about 50 of those songs and put them out. Like a bunch of things happened that were all predicated by this path that we had to be on.
Right. Now,
And I'll say one other thing, which is like every tornado that has been through Nashville, if you look on the great map of them, they're basically on almost parallel vectors. I mean, it's insane how close of the same path the three tornadoes have taken. The one in '98, which is part of the reason why we own Woodland to start with, because of the damage that did when it was a commercial studio. The 2021 and the one in, I don't remember
30s.
when, the 30s, they're all parallel vectors, and they do cross, and the place where all three of those lines cross is about 50 feet from Woodland, which is to say, the whole time we're doing this, I'm like, rebuilding this, I'm like, and we might get a year, we may get 3 years,
could be
I don't know.
temporary.
Yes, I have no idea. No,
But
it
they've
will
never
be.
taken the building out, you know.
So fingers crossed. It's not like there's anything changing in the world that makes tornadoes happen more.
oh yeah, there's something sort of zen about that, like making peace with impermanence.
Yes. Oh, no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're gonna hear another live song right now. We're gonna listen to Howdy Howdy. Could you tell us anything about Howdy Howdy before we hear this?
Sometimes it's hard to remember how the songs start. It was the chorus. It was the part with the howdy howdy in it. Yeah. And I just thought that was a beautiful phrase. I heard it in an old spiritual. It was talking about heaven and how it was all going to be good up there. It was all going to be howdy howdy, never goodbye.
And then we had been working on a sort of a series of songs that I for a long time thought were going to be put together on this project that were all kind of these parallelisms. You know, there was a song called The Princess and the Raven. There was a song called The Chicken and the Pig. There was a song called The Bells and the Birds, which ended up on the record. And that was very much in a lot of what we kept coming up with. And so
There kept being talking animals.
yes.
It was very early on, people would say, how's the record coming? Like, what are the songs about? I said, I don't know, man, but there's a lot of talking animals.
A lot of talking animals.
So
Let's take a listen to this live performance. It's Howdy Howdy from Gillian Welch and David Rawlings on World Cafe.
Tell me, what did the blackbird say to the crow? Dry your eyes, don't you cry, ain't gonna rain no more. Men on the levee
Tell me who is more blue? Is it you or me?
We've been together since the dawn of when.
And the best parts were one starts and the other ends. You and me are always gonna be howdy, howdy. You and me always walk that lonesome valley. You and me always gonna be howdy, howdy.
Tell me, what did the riddle say to the song? The devil he's blowing reveille, and we ain't got long. Let's play the spider, bit the baby up. Last time, last ride, one more for the road. One more for the road. You and me are always gonna be howdy, howdy. You and me always walk that lonesome valley.
Howdy Howdy, Gillian Welch and David Rawlings. It's a new song from their album Woodland. They are here with me today on World Cafe. I'm Raina Douris. And I was listening back to your last World Cafe interview from 2020.
How was that?
It was very nice. You told a story of when The Heroine and the Harvest, which was released under Gillian's name, was nominated for a Grammy, and you both worked on it. You know, you considered it an album from both of you, but the Grammys treated it as a solo album and only gave you one set of tickets. And so, David, you'd have to go as Gillian's guest. And Gillian, you called and you were like, "This is a band with two people. Give us another pair of tickets." And so
Yeah.
that story, you told it before you went to the Grammys again. And if you fast forward to the 2021 Grammys, you were nominated. You were both nominated this time for All the Good Times, and you won. So congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you.
How did it feel to officially win that Grammy together under both your names?
Well,
Well, the funniest part of this is, you know, we made that record because we, you know, during lockdown, the studio was still a complete
disaster.
wreck. Couldn't use it. And so I had set up a tape machine in the living room a long time ago, and I moved over this, you know, sort of beautiful stereo microphone, and we started recording at the house, kind of for fun. And then I thought, well, maybe we'll get something out of it. And it was just a real pleasure to be recording in this living room because the planes weren't flying and there were no cars and there were hours of silence. So we could actually record in the living room and get something that might be usable. So we started working on that record, and we put it together, and I called the gentleman who owned the pressing plant we worked with, and he was very busy, and I said to him, if I put together this little live record, can you press us a small run of it?
I glued the anything that had type on it, because all we could get were plain white record sleeves.
Right.
So, and then another friend out in Portland made the cover image and the back thing and cut them and then sent them to us, and I glued all the things onto the record sleeves.
So the
All
couple
of us
thousand
did.
we did, we just worked through them. But the funniest part of this was that was just where this lived in my head and kind of in our label's head and in everyone's head. So we didn't even submit it for the Grammys. It never occurred to us.
The last thing we were thinking
was that this was like even a real release.
Yeah.
And so someone from the Academy actually contacted us and said, you might want to submit this thing.
Wow.
and then
Then we did. We were like, oh yeah, but nothing's going to happen with that. Just for fun.
Yeah.
It's a fine. We'll put it in.
But of course we couldn't go, to it.
Right. There was
And-
no real
No.
ceremony. Yeah.
And so when the ceremony was actually happening, I wasn't even, again, you just have to understand, this was so far off my radar. So when the ceremony was actually happening, I was walking around our neighborhood picking up trash. I was picking up trash, and I came back to the house, and I pulled my phone out of my pocket. It was like 48 missed messages.
Wow.
What the heck? So that's how I.
And I was probably somewhere in Woodland on a ladder, So it was the deepest, most wonderful thing to feel, recognized in that way. And also to feel that thing of, there was a sense of arrival in it for me, because I don't know if this can be taken the right way, but like artists who I really loved when I was coming up, like I was aware that they never got Grammys for any of their best work. Like this wasn't how the Grammys worked. To my mind, the Grammys were something that you got like 20 years after you did good work. Then they'll give you a Grammy for something else.
Right.
Because that's how, I think it's better now, but for a lot of years that seemed like what it was. And when you're a young kid full of vinegar, as I was, and I look at these records that I think are the pinnacle of music in these years that weren't even I was like, well, that's just a thing. It's an award show and it's great for music, but I'm not going to worry about it. And so when we got a Grammy for that, which was, in my mind, just the covers record we made, I thought, well, I guess we did good work 20 years ago.
Exactly, man.
Is that too honest?
No, I love it.
Sorry.
I think that's like the best story I've ever heard about winning a Grammy. I'm joined today by Gillian Welch and David Rawlings. You have worked together for a very long time. You've been together for a long time. Making this new album, did you feel like you learned anything new about each other?
Interesting. I'd kind of have to say no.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking no. I mean, I'm thinking that Dave can arrange strings and not sleep for 3 days. No, I already knew that.
Yeah.
Like, that.
I think we learned that we have a certain amount of endurance and staying power.
Yeah, but I already knew that too. But this was an exaggerated version of it.
We have one more live performance to hear, and it's funny, I kind of to end with this because I feel like we're having all these laughs, and then we're gonna finish with the song that when I listened to the record, like moved me to tears the first time through. The song "What We Had." It sounds, and I'm not gonna make any assumptions about what it's about, but it kind of sounds like a lost love song, and that seems like it could be a sensitive subject when you're a couple writing. Are there things like that are hard to write about with each other?
It's just a song that there's so much sort of lost there. That song just touches a lot of everything that was happening. You know?
Yeah, it certainly wasn't like just a breakup. In fact, so much was gone. So much that we had disappeared, was gone. It was kind of more macro
Sure.
Yeah.
than, so it was all these things. I started the song with the chorus and what we had, like that's where it came from. And I kind of couldn't believe that song didn't exist already. And it was just the sound of those words.
Yeah.
Just what, it really blindsided me and so many people, that tremendous sense of, you don't miss your water till your well runs dry. Just never saw it coming. Just had no idea that, the world was just going to go whoop.
Yeah, and I think about a time in 2019, I had decided that what I was going to do was rewind a pickup for an electrical lap steel guitar, which is by hand. Do 10,000 winds of a copper thing on, by myself. Like, that's where my mind was in 2019. I had enough time at 1 minute to go, I guess this is the moment where I'm going to play around with this for a week or two.
Yeah.
And when I think back on that and what I've done for the past 5 years, I'm like, how could that have been real?
Yeah. No, I think that's
that I had, like, I don't have time to brush my teeth, for the past
I think
5 years.
that's so relatable.
Yeah,
Like,
I
who
mean?
was I back?
Yes,
I
exactly.
don't
No,
know.
I have no idea.
Yeah, we're all brand new.
Yeah. I think that's a wonderful place to leave it. Let's listen to this live performance. It's Gillian Welch and David Rawlings performing What We Had live for the World Cafe.
All my world is changing. I don't know where I'm going. Apartments rearranging. The beggar winds are blowing. Seems like ancient history. You were sleeping, I was driving. Where you were lying next to me, I'd scan the blue horizon. I used to dream of something unseen. It was something that I thought I wanted so bad. Now I only want what we had, 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 we had, we had. What we had was unspoken. It flowed like wine, like music. What we had is broken now, though we thought we could never lose it. I used to dream of something unseen. It was something that I thought I wanted
Recorded live at the World Cafe, Gillian Welch and David Rawlings with What We Had. It's a song from their new album, Woodland. Gillian and David have been my guests on the show today. I have loved having you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a great pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm Raina Douris, back in a moment with more World Cafe.
Saw a freight train yesterday. It was chugging, plugging away across the river. Trestle